In 1972, inside a locked lab at Tulane University, a patient known only as B19 sat with a single button wired directly into his brain and pressed it 1,500 times in 3 hours. How does a person keep choosing the same button forever, when his own records show each press satisfied him less than the last? Neuroscientists still cannot fully explain what happened inside his skull that afternoon, and the answer may be rewiring your brain right now. The man behind the wire was Dr. Robert Heath, a psychiatrist obsessed with mapping pleasure inside the human skull. His patients were young, isolated, often institutionalized for conditions psychiatry no longer recognizes as illness. Heath threaded electrodes into a region called the septal area, then handed his subjects a small black button. Press it, and a burst of current fired directly into that spot. B19 was 24 years old. He was told he could stop whenever he wanted. He never did. The first anomaly surfaces almost immediately. 18 years earlier, researchers Olds and Milner had wired the same region into lab rats, and those rats stopped eating. They stopped drinking. They pressed a lever 2,000 times an hour until they collapsed from exhaustion, choosing a shock of current over food, water, even their own offspring. B19's chart mirrors that curve almost exactly, but B19 wasn't starving for pleasure. His own reports, recorded by Heath's staff, show the sensation growing duller, flatter, less satisfying with every session, and still his pressing accelerated. The obvious theory writes itself. Call it addiction. Call the septal button a direct line to the brain's pleasure center, bypassing eyes and mouth and skin altogether, hijacking the reward system the same way a needle hijacks it. Under that theory, B19 is simply chasing a high, the same as any user chasing a drug. Diminishing pleasure, increasing use, that pattern shows up in every addiction textbook ever written. Case closed, you might think, except the data doesn't behave that way at all. Here's what breaks the addiction theory. When researchers later tracked the actual neurochemical signal, they found something almost backwards. Dopamine wasn't spiking in response to how good the stimulation felt. It was spiking in anticipation of the button being pressed again, a forecasting signal, not a pleasure signal. Scientists now call this a reward prediction error. The chemical isn't celebrating an experience, it's placing a bet on the next one. And in B19, that bet kept paying out in his brain's accounting books even as the real, felt reward collapsed toward zero. His future-facing circuitry had stopped tracking reality. This is the detail that should unsettle you. Dopamine's actual job was never to reward you for what already happened. Its job is to update your internal model of what's coming, to calculate whether the future is worth waiting for. A hijacked circuit doesn't make the present feel better, it makes the future stop mattering. Economists later gave this a name: temporal discounting, the brain's tendency to shrink the value of anything more than a few seconds away. B19 pressed that button 1,500 times not because it felt good, but because his brain had quietly rewritten the exchange rate between now and later, until later was worth almost nothing at all. Remember that opening detail, each press buying him less than the one before. That isn't a failure of the reward system. That is the reward system, functioning exactly as designed, once its clock gets broken. Investigators tried to close this case more than once. Some argued it was simple behavioral conditioning, a rat-like reinforcement loop with no deeper mystery, but that fails to explain why the compulsion intensified as the actual reward declined. Conditioning predicts the opposite. Others pointed to B19's psychiatric history, framing his behavior as a symptom of an already disordered mind. But Olds and Milner's original rats had no psychiatric history at all, and displayed the identical, self-destructive curve. Still others called the entire experiment coerced performance, a subject giving researchers what they wanted, yet the electrode readings themselves, the raw firing patterns beneath conscious behavior, tracked the same prediction error signature in every subject tested, willing or not. Every clean explanation collapses under its own data. 70 years of study later, Neuroscientists still cannot fully account for how a system engineered to help you delay gratification for a better future can be rewired to erase that future entirely, one small hit at a time. The button in that Tulane lab is gone. The circuit it exploited is still installed in every skull alive today, still running the same prediction math, still capable of quietly discounting tomorrow down to nothing. If dopamine's real function was never pleasure but prophecy, what exactly is your brain forecasting right now, and what future is it already writing off?